tension and dialogue between faith and science, as groundbreaking discoveries continues to challenge traditional notions of existence, purpose, and creation. They also offer fertile ground for deeper reflection and meaningful integration. Through open minded discussion, we aim to navigate questions about the nature of being, reality, and the universe, while considering perspectives that balance scientific inquiry with spiritual and ethical understanding. The main topics of interest of our forum is evolution and creationism, which is our subject for this evening, Big Bang Theory and Cosmology, Artificial Intelligence, Genetic Engineering, Human Cloning, Consciousness and Neuroscience, Extraterrestrial Life, Quantum Mechanics and Determinism, Longevity and Immortality, Climate Change and Environmental Ethics, Multiverse Theory, Ethical Implications of Transhumanism, and Science and Spirituality. We invite all participants and viewers to engage during the Q&A session to share insights, challenge assumptions, and help foster mutual respect as we delve into the profound intersection of science, faith, and ontology. Our main topic, as I said, for discussion this evening is evolution. Is evolution God's plan? Together, we will explore dialogue between evolutionary science and traditional religious narratives and creation. Dr. Nawal Hamadi is a prominent member of the Arab American Community, founder and retired chairman, emeritus executive of Hamadi Educational Services, which is HES. Am I right? HES since 1998. Founder and president of American Educational Foundation, a nonprofit since 1998, president and CEO of HES Reads LLC since 2021, founder and retired, too bad you're retired, retired school superintendent for 23 years of 4 successful and highly regarded Michigan public school academies, which we don't have the time to mention all of them at this time. She has exceptional fiscally sound budgets and top and stable schools rating by Standards and Poor's. She has over 30 years experience in leadership and governance in public and private corporate sectors and for profit and nonprofit. Aside from education, awards, and activities, I will try to take advantage of her speech. I would give you the podium.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm actually very honored to have been invited. I wanted to thank Dr. Firas for the invite, and I like everybody. I'd like to thank you as well for attending, and I hope to provide a clear perspective about how educators, from an educator's perspective, how we actually teach, considering the philosophy and the question in mind, is evolution God's plan? So I'd like to start by saying I was very honored, of course, especially I anticipated to be amongst people who have science background, a strong science background, or may have, kind of got into the research of the, science as well as religion to see where the position is from an Islamic perspective. Tonight's question is evolution's God's plan is one of the most enduring questions of human inquiry. It asks how scientific discovery, theological meaning, and educational responsibility can coexist. I speak to you not as a scientist or theologian, but as an educational leader, someone responsible for curriculum, teacher support, and ensuring that students from diverse cultural and religious backgrounds receive an education that is both academically rigorous and humanly respectful. How we teach evolution shapes students understand knowledge and evidence, faith and meaning, whether learning is something to fear or something to approach with courage. I invite you to reflect on this guiding question. How do we teach ideas that may challenge students' worldviews while preserving scientific rigor and honoring their identities? By the way, this question is not necessarily just for science, but since we focus on science, I'll stick to that. But we experience this in almost every subject. So, especially with social studies, history, considering the politics around the world. So, why this question matters in education? The question before us is not only what is true, but how truth is taught. Who feels included and whether classrooms become spaces of fear or inquiry. In the Islamic tradition, the first revealed command was not believe, but God in the Holy Quran stated, Iqra. This reminds us that faith and learning are not opposites, they are partners. Yet in many K-12 classrooms today, evolution creates anxiety. Students may fear having to choose between science and belief. Teachers may fear conflict with families and communities. School leaders fear controversy rather than dialogue. Our role as educators is not to resolve theology. Our responsibility is to teach knowledge with integrity, create space for reflection without fear, ensure students are not academically disadvantaged because adults avoid difficult topics. Before discussing perspectives and strategies, we must first ground ourselves in what science education actually requires at the K-12 program. In the United States, and specifically in the state of Michigan, science instruction is guided by the Next Generation Science Standards, in parentheses, NGSS. Many of you may have heard of that. The NGSS requires that students understand evolution as a unifying concept of biology, how species change over time. Also, to analyze evidence, common ancestry, natural selection, and adaptation. Examples, of course, the metamorphosis of a butterfly, camouflage in insects, thick fur in cold climates, defensive behaviors like playing dead. Third aspect of the requirements is engage students in scientific practices and modeling, explanation, having argument from evidence, using fossils, genetics, and biodiversity data. NGSS does not ask students to adopt philosophical or theoretical beliefs. It asks them to understand how scientific knowledge is constructed. NGSS is about how we know, not what to believe in. This distinction is vital in educators navigating multicultural classrooms. Avoiding or diluting evolution instruction does not protect students. It disadvantages them academically and professionally. Teaching evolution clearly and accurately is non-negotiable responsibility for educators. So this is something we have to teach, not just as a requirement, but as the fact that how it benefits students. And not only that, those who read the Quran or read the Quran, it's constantly reinforced that we have to seek knowledge and not just take things for granted as this. God gave us freedom to do that, so we can analyze and make our own decision. And there's a statement, La ikraha bid-din, so nobody can force the religion upon us. We have to study it, we have to read it, we have to internalize it, to believe in it, to know it. And that's a form of research as well, so in line of the scientific theories. Historically, let's now consider the historical and cultural context of evolution and faith. For Muslim participants and for our interfaith colleagues, it's important to recognize that engagement with nature, casualty, and change has deep roots in Islamic intellectual history. Several classical scholars demonstrate thoughtful engagement with natural processes. Al-Jihaz in the 9th century observed how environmental factors influence survival and characteristics of organisms, ideas that resemble early reflections on adaptation. Ibn Khaldun in the 14th century described a gradual progression in creation, from minerals to plants to animals, and toward human beings, emphasizing continuity in nature. Within Islamic thought today, perspectives vary, of course. Some support, some disagree with. One literal creation perspectives, especially regarding Adam and Eve. Theistic evolution perspectives, viewing evolution as a divinely guided process. Hybrid views, accepting evolution for non-human life while affirming a special creation of ensoulment of humanity. The most significant tension typically centers on human origins, not on evolution as a biological process itself. Educational leadership across, I would say, there are similar diversity issues across Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, and other traditions. So Islam is not the only one that has those issues. There's, people who agree and people who disagree, and people who stand in the middle. Educational leadership does not resolve theology. Instead, it asks, how do we teach science without turning it into ideology, and faith without turning it into anti-intellectualism? Evolution explains biological diversity. It does not address the existence of God, revelation, or moral meaning. As someone without a science background like myself, I rely deeply on the expertise of scientists, and one crucial distinction they consistently emphasize in this. Evolution explains process, not purpose. It describes mechanism. It does not answer metaphysical questions. From an Islamic perspective, this matters deeply. The Quran repeatedly points to processes in nature as ayat, means signs inviting reflection. Whether one understands evolution as a compatible with divine will, as a mechanism under God's command, or as a theory requiring careful theological boundaries, the educational responsibility remains clear. Students must learn evolution accurately and rigorously as foundational biological science. Teaching science poorly does not protect faith. It undermines trust in institutions, educators, and knowledge itself. Teaching evolution can be challenging, especially for teachers who may feel underprepared in science. Many may worry about student, parent, or community pushback, personal discomfort or controversial topics, conflict with local community beliefs. And from an educator's perspective, evolution instruction helps students. It helps them understand the natural world, recognizing patterns in species adaptation, teaches critical thinking and problem-solving skills, and that transfers to which may transfer to any career from engineering and medicine to law and policy. That has really helped me in my career as an educational leader. I can give you examples. At some point, I had to sit in hearings for students' discipline issues. And of course, how do you conclude when you don't have facts? You don't rely on this and that and so forth. You collect data, you analyze the data, you present the facts, and then you can make judgments. And you look at the policies and everything else. So in almost every career, it does help students. And also, second, it helps develop evidence-based reasoning. Students learn to analyze data, evaluate competing explanations, and make informed decisions. These are lifelong skills essential for careers in STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, English language, art, and math. Also, it helps with the health sciences, environmental management, and beyond. It also helps connect science to ethical reflection. Discussions about evolution encourage students to think about human responsibility, stewardship of the environment, and societal impacts. You know the atomic bomb, right? So, can you imagine we learn science and not think of the ethical issues that are involved? That's an example. So, it bridges science with moral and ethical reasoning. The most powerful educators are not those with final answers, but those who model questions. What does the evidence show? What assumptions am I bringing? Where does science and belief begin? How do we disagree with dignity? This is tarbiyah, formation, not instruction, not just instruction. From a leadership perspective, evolution education prepares students for future careers, builds trust through cultural respect, fosters curiosity and lifelong learning. In essence, teaching evolution helps students bridge the academic, professional, spiritual, and ethical dimensions of their lives. It prepares them not just for tests, but for meaningful careers, informed citizenship, and thoughtful engagement with faith and culture. Leaders support this work through professional development, offer workshops on the NGSS standards, inquiry-based learning, and discussion strategies for sensitive topics. Also providing inclusive teaching framework, encourage evidence-based inquiry, critical thinking, and open dialogue without imposing belief. This illustrates the power of leadership in shaping safe, inclusive, and academically rigorous learning environments. Let's look at the multicultural and faith-sensitive classroom strategies. So what happens when you have students with many different diverse backgrounds, which is what we have in our schools? We do have students from different faiths as well. I'm sure Dearborn Public Schools and Dearborn Heights and so forth, most classrooms have diverse students. So they bring diverse religious and cultural lenses to the scientific topics. Students present a challenge to teachers and to the learning environment. And it's up to the educators to know how to, work around through those challenges. Successful, culturally responsive teaching includes recognizing students' beliefs, not humiliating them or ignoring them, encouraging reflection, engaging students to think, and creating safe inquiry spaces. Generation Z context. Students today are digital natives. We need to recognize that. And they're constantly encountering diverse perspectives online. Gen Z is growing up in a world of algorithm driven information, polarization, and distrust in institutions. So we have to recognize these things exist as educators and deal with them. So they ask, who can I trust? They don't ask what's the truth, who can I trust? Because there's so much information on social media and everywhere else. When educators say, here's what science teaches, here are its limits, here's how thoughtful believers reflect, here's how you can think critically, they model intellectual courage. Their courage is a leadership skill our future demands. To this end, our responsibility as educational leaders is to form critical thinkers with moral character, students who can hold complex truths without resorting to false simplicity, so shying away from the facts, the theory of evolution, the concepts, the processes, does not help our students to think critically. And equipping them to critically evaluate evidence while respecting faith prepares them for both academic and life challenges. So evolution is not just biology. It influences, like I said earlier, careers, ethical reasoning, and societal participation. There's medicine as an example. So understanding disease evolution and pandemics informs public health careers, and equips students to evaluate medical evidence critically. We've gone through COVID as an example, and the immunization that was presented to us. At some point, some of that immunization, the virus kind of, if this whole scenario was truthful based on the knowledge that we were presented with, so it loses effect. And so you gotta keep getting a booster and whatever it is. It's a small example. Environmental science also and climate policy. Evolutionary principles underpin biodiversity conversation, sustainability, and ecological research, which are increasingly relevant for global careers and civic engagement. There's a factor of ethics, policy, and faith dialogue. Teachers and leaders can guide students to explore questions like, what responsibilities do humans have toward other species? Or how do science and faith inform moral decision making? Teaching evolution effectively equips students with STEM readiness, problem solving, analytical skills, ethical reasoning, grounded in evidence and empathy, of course. So also, inclusive classrooms will guide or inform proper instruction. So it leads to respectful inquiry, setting clear boundaries, and engaging parents to be part of the process, because you need the buy-in of the parents as well. So how do you get the buy-in of the parents on theories that create conflict? So does evolution mean God didn't create humans? A student may ask you this question, so how do you address it? How do we address it? A suggested response for teachers when we train them: science explains processes, faith addresses purpose and meaning. Many people hold both together. So we have to reinforce these concepts over and over and over. Inclusive education does not erase difference. It creates intellectual hospitality. And that's why it's okay to teach evolution at the school level. I know we're required to teach it, but it's okay. It's how we teach it is what matters. And educational leaders have to be careful with what goes on in the classroom. It's important to kind of see lesson planning, not necessarily themselves, but they have departments who will do that. They oversee lesson planning, they oversee methodologies, they oversee performance. Why? Believe it or not, it's either you have to pay attention either to the ignorance and lack of preparedness of the teacher or the political side of it, which is more dangerous. Teachers can mold the brains and can mold the mentality and how the students think. If they ever have any ill intention, they can mislead students and brainwash them. We've experienced multiple incidents where we had to take action. So facts can be misconstrued. So we gotta prepare teachers, at the same time we have to oversee. So inclusive education cannot erase difference. It creates intellectual hospitality, and students should never feel they must abandon faith to succeed. If they ever feel they're at this point, something is wrong in the classroom. So they should never be denied rigorous science education. So we're in full support of providing education in evolution. To this end, I will conclude the following. Curriculum is never neutral. So what we teach and how we teach communicates our values. Teaching evolution well communicates confidence in knowledge, respect for students' intelligence, and trust that faith is not fragile. Islamic civilization once led the world in science because it did not fear inquiry. Our goal is not to answer definitely whether evolution is God's plan, but to prepare students to navigate complexity, integrate knowledge with values, lead with wisdom and humility. And so with that, I would say, let us commit to classrooms where science and faith are partners in inquiry and not opposite, and where students grow into leaders capable of bridging scientific, ethical, and cultural divides. Thank you.
You need to be editing your script. Since I don't have a script or anything to discuss regarding our subject is evolution, God's plan, I would like to comment on some questions, like profound questions, I should call it. There remain numerous profound questions that are still unanswered across these domains. The following are among the most significant challenges and mysteries confronting scientists, theologians, and philosophers today, and each of these questions continue to stimulate rigorous debate, empirical investigation, and deep philosophical reflection across multiple disciplines. The first one I have in mind is theoretical physics, the nature of dark matter and dark energy, what constitutes 95% of the universe's mass energy content. The unification of quantum mechanics and general relativity, is it possible to reconcile gravity with quantum theory in a single theory of everything, which we are all aware of? The nature of time, is time fundamental, emergent, or merely an illusion? The measurement problem in quantum mechanics, what precisely brings about the collapse of the wave function? The existence of extra dimensions, could additional spatial dimensions account for the fundamental forces? The black hole information paradox, what ultimately happens to information that falls into black holes? Dr. Firas Hamadi, an engineer, researcher, and thinker who combines technological and educational studies with research in religion, philosophy, and the natural sciences. He graduated from universities in France, where I was also had my education, and the United States, moving between the study of physics, graduate studies in computer science, and a doctorate in technological academic leadership. Am I right, Dr. Firas? Oh, he worked in software development in major American companies. Currently, he heads the IT department of an oil field company somewhere in the States. North Dakota. I know it's North Dakota. You invited me there. And as a professor of computer science at the University of Wayne State in Detroit, he has written dozens of studies and articles that harmonize rational philosophical analysis of religious texts with methodological rigor and scientific and academic interference, reflecting his commitment to creating harmony between faith and empirical thought. His publications and lectures cover a variety of stimulating topics, including neuroscience, the natural of moral responsibility, the brain and the soul, artificial intelligence and cosmic order, the theory of knowledge, and the relationship between the universe, the human being, science, and religion. Multifaceted person. Dr. Firas, the podium is yours.
Let's have that PowerPoint. Always, that's my best friend all the time, PowerPoint.
You're an IT guy. What do you expect?
No, for all people from academia, they course.
بس هيدا الجزء من الفقرة
let me see, because that was working fine. But now it's not coming up. Something.
Are you using HDMI 1 or 2?
Well, I have only one cable. Oh, yeah, you might have to start. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So yeah, while this is coming up, just something was a bit anecdotal for me while I was writing that this is script. I I saw an alert about an article, and it was in Daily Science. So it was talking about um, reshaping our mind of evolution, and
Too much dark.
no, it's too much dark.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, we can leave it that way. Okay. Yeah, so that I'm gonna read you. All right, yeah, now it's coming up. Okay. You can see the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, actually, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want a mirror.
Yes.
Yeah, that's. Oh my God, that's not. I don't want a mirror. I just want to project to the second one.
Good job.
I want to expand. Yeah, no, it's getting, but I want to extend it. But now, that's with your center. And now I can go make sure that it goes to the. Show on second screen monitor. Now it should show on the second screen. All right, so yeah, sorry I cannot see your face clearly, but this is the setup. Yeah, so I was reading an article in Daily Science was talking about new discovery that reshape our thinking about evolution. And science, you know, is dynamic, and that's the beauty about the human mind and that faculty of reasoning that we are loaded from with, and that was bestowed to us by the Creator. So that continuous thinking and rethinking of the world that is shaping our mind. I remember when I was reading the great work of Darwin, of the naturalist Darwin, uh, about the species, his great work. I was looking at the timeline of the existence of the hominid, and then for me it was for sure that our last species that we evolved into the Homo sapiens sapien, and sapiens comes from Latin, which means wise, is around 195,000 years ago. And that was for more than a decade, I would say maybe 2 decades, common among scientists and biologists. Till they found a fossil in Morocco around 8 years ago that dated to around 255,000 years ago. So then we said, okay, our species is older. It looks like it's older. And then after what caught my attention, a discovery in China for a fossil that really it looks very similar to the Homo sapiens sapien, and is dated to around 750,000 years ago now. See, it's real discrepancy. And then there were a lot of thoughts about the some other species, the Deinocevians, and that were debating that it may reshape our thinking of the timeline of how human being have evolved. But in any case, what I would say that any scientific theory is not impeccable, and science is still evolving. But yet, I would say to the Mr. Richard Dawkins, something about the common sense, and I admire a lot his work also, and his school of thought is amazing. But with all my due respect, when he says even the common sense that we have, he was questioning the common sense that it was part of the adaptation and natural selection. Then the problem that was a problem to define what is a human being. And so our knowledge is all inductive, it's based upon induction, as we know, about observation. And this is, our only tool is this brain. So if you say, if we need to think about why we're here and about we question the universe, and if our brain tells us nothing can comes up out of nothingness, then this common sense, we can do nothing about it. This is how we are structured, and this is how we are supposed to think. And then we have to question about the nature of our life and about the ends and the purpose. This is a human being. You take off the purposeness of a human being, is not a human being. This is how it defines us. So then with that little introduction, I would say that this question is evolution God's plan for creation is not merely a scientific question. And I echo Mrs. Hamadi also with what she had said in her very informative speech. It's not merely a scientific question, nor solely a theological one. It's a deeply human question, touching on meaning, purpose, identity, and our place in this universe. So rather than framing this, I would invite you to see that dialogue about how life developed and to ponder on the nature of this universe. And just to tell you some anecdotal, some anecdotal thing, but something really nice about these thoughts. So one time I got a question from a friend of mine saying that it passed around over 13 billion years till we get the first living cell 400 million years ago. I mean, with that whole time, what God was doing, like we had that kind of nice dialogue. And I said to him, but you forgot. There is no time for the Creator, for God. It's 13 billion years is for you, it's too much. It's long, long time. But time is created. So you cannot, in theology, you cannot even make that inference that why it took God that long to create the first cell. But like the apologist, the religious apologist says that we are centered in the universe, and I kind of believe in that because we are the only species that we can discuss and ponder upon what happened 13 billion years ago. What was the first that started was helium, then hydrogen, and how life got complex, and why they were existence versus non-existence in the first place. That's a big question. But then all these complications or different scenarios that happen till we get to 400 million years ago, and we started with the life, the living cell, and to get to the human being with the most complex object in the universe, which is the human brain, just to think, me and you, to come to this point and think and ponder up in this universe. So I think we are very central in this universe, and this goes with the accordance of the teaching of different religion, at least those of Abrahamic faith. That conversation matters because across universities, dinner tables, and the classroom, science and faith are often presented as incompatible opposites, as Dr. Hamadi mentioned. Students feel they must choose between intellectual honesty and spiritual belief, but this false binary diminishes both domains. The reality is far more complex, intellectually rich, and spiritually meaningful than either extreme position suggests. So, if I continue with the slides, you see that I just put those highlights. Science and faith are often traded as enemy, but this is not the case, the real case. So now let us begin with what science tells us about evolution, as described by the modern biology. But this is more a scientific frame about our inductive knowledge. The scientific methodology about observation, making hypotheses, and then the test, and then confirming by test, and concluding. So this is process. When you talk about naturalists and people in biology, so basically when they talk about evolution, they stipulate that it's a process by which life changes over through mechanisms, such as major four things. Mutation, it's one, and adaptation, and natural selection, and genetic variation. Those are the most four mentioned in biology. So there is an empirical and overwhelming support of that, and a lot of evidence, of course, from fossil records and comparative anatomy to genetics and molecular biology. Now, for many scientists, evolution is not a world view. This is about the beauty of separating the how of things of the why of things, and that humility that scientists show in their study, even though sometimes they want to wear the hat of philosophers or a scholar or a priest, and they do this always, and I like that when they do it because you cannot separate really the different really domain of knowledge. Those are they overlap all the time. So now it answers the question: how does life change? But science, by its very nature, does not ask why the universe exists in the first place, as we said, and then whether life has ultimate meaning. And this is also a crucial, not only for ontologists, but for a human being as a human being. Those questions lie beyond the scope of empirical measurement. So if I continue with those slides, and I have around 5 more slides. So, all right. Okay. So what science does not claim, does not define meaning, does not deny God, and does not provide moral purpose. Now, some people, it's a personal choice. Some people say, okay, a lot of scientists or non-scientists are atheists or are agnostic. And this is a worthless research or thought. It's really is not the point. So science does not claim to answer why we exist, whether life has ultimate purpose, or what moral principles should guide us. It doesn't deny God. It simply doesn't require the hypothesis to explain biological mechanism. Scientific knowledge tells us how stars form, how cells divide, how species change, but it doesn't tell us whether to call existence beautiful, whether to worship or how to live a meaningful life. I'm talking about morality, as you know, which is crucial and embedded and as an inherited part in our genes, if you want. So I move to the other slides because I'm gonna pass to the theistic view and the anti-theistic view, and then I will wrap up with conclusion to leave the floor for our colleagues. And I would like to listen more than I talk usually. So from a theistic perspective, with the Christian, mainly Jewish and Islamic tradition, we understood creation as purposeful. And then at the core of this thought is the process of God's work, of Allah's work, is evolution. So Allah works in us and works in creation through evolution. So that there is that mechanism, and that it does not deny the purpose of creation. So it's rooted as a divine intention, and that's what really matters: the intentionality. It's at the core of things. We don't say that when this, after the Big Bang, when the stars were forming and the universe had many scenarios, billions of scenarios to happen, and we won't have existence. Why we get that happy path, at least to be now with you, to have this universe and to talk about morality, spirituality, and science? It's because there were a purpose and intelligent, there were intelligence since the start, the earliest moments of the universe. So now, as you know, they started with that 10 constant, universal constant, and now we ended up with 600 universal constants. And then if you play a little bit with one constant, if like you say, the speed of light is over is more than 300,000 kilometers per second, then there is no life. It's this is why the universe is intelligible. That's the big question. So now it comes ontology and theology into the play. Some believers interpret sacred text literally as seeing creation as a direct and immediate act of God. Yes, true, there are. And there are specifically in the text of our Christian brethren that God had created Adam and Eve 6,000 years ago. Only, and they give you the time, and that's it's a naive study. But then there are a lot of other people, scholars from theology, that they say we're talking about periods, and they read a lot of symbolism in the sacred texts more than mechanisms or processes. So then the theistic evolution, in a nutshell, and sometimes it's called evolutionary creation, bridges these views. It holds that God is the ultimate source of creation that works through natural laws, including evolution. And this view, evolution does not replace God, it describes how God creates. That's basically. And it's not the whole story, of course. There are a lot of things to come and to discover about adaptation and natural selection and what it follows. So I will continue with the next slide. What I was explaining to you on the focus on purpose, not the mechanism. Now you see when some naturalists talk about randomness, why there is randomness in nature, and the main thought of the theistic school of thought, theistic means from God, right? And we use a lot in the Western culture the Latin annotation. So it does not necessarily mean purposelessness. So it's really God has chosen a way of doing things is the randomness, and then it's like a process can appear stochastic, yet is a part of a bigger framework and a bigger intention. Why this is still unfolding? So there is a larger intentional framework. Just as a master artist may use seemingly random brush strokes to create a unified vision, so too my natural processes serve a greater purpose. And as I told you, that as a human, as our brain, as our common sense, the way we are constructed, we think about the global picture. You talk to me all the time about details, but a lot of time I tell you what is the purpose, what is the end, what is the intention, what is the bigger picture. This is how we are constructed, and that's the beauty of a human being also. So we are physical beings, but we are metaphysicals as well, and it has been all the time like that. Now we come to the from the anti-theistic view that we said that evolution is sufficient on its own. Now I'm not saying that Darwin has started that. Originally he was a priest, okay, and then he stipulates that okay, that should be followed like a religion. He didn't say that, but some people who are fervent of this school of thought, they're saying even the meanings, they are human constructed. They pertain to culture, and the human experience may affect them. Even morality is part of it. But if I'm gonna put my 2%, I would say I don't agree with that. And I had never could convince myself of it, because I was talking to myself as we understand fitra in our religion, coming from Islamic background, that morality it's like a universal it's a universal value. Now there are some few difference in details, but the need of worship is in among it exists everywhere on this globe, everywhere. But now the cultures comes into play in details. But the idea of worshiping that we owe our existence to a supernatural being or to a more powerful being exists everywhere. And Dr. Hamadi was mentioning the multicultural aspect. I have been asking this question to many people from different cultures about their feeling when they are flying and they are in issue, or, for example, when how they pray and what they think. So there are a lot of similarities among different cultures and that part, the inbred part implanted in our thinking and in our brain, that inbred part. But to be objective, from anti-theistic or study naturalistic view, evolution is sufficient on its own. There is no need to invoke a divine being to explain life's diversity or complexity. Advocates of this position often argue that introducing God into scientific explanation is unnecessary and potentially hinders inquiry, which is good as an inference in separating what science do, the role of science and the role of theology or ontology or philosophy. So it's separating those two in our understanding as a human being. Now, this perspective emphasizes intellectual humility, which is good about it, acknowledging that humans are the product of natural processes, not the center of the universe. Which this I don't agree with that. But academic honesty, we are enforcing here academic honesty, right? Saying their opinion. So it often finds, not in divine intention, but in the elegance of natural laws themselves. And I love that part. And so at least both perspectives converge when quoting Einstein. And I love a lot this quote for Einstein. I am in awe before the harmony of the cosmos. And so he says something really also very meaningful in this context. He says that the most incomprehensible or non-comprehensible thing about the universe is its comprehensibility. So it's intelligible word, yet it has all the reasons for us, a human being, not to understand it, but yet we understand it. So there is a natural or super natural being that is guiding us through our inbred thinking or brain to discover and to go deep in knowledge and understand the universe around us, and which is amazing, specifically since Hubble's telescope was discovered in the 30s, and we start looking at the from the redshift time, and we started looking at different galaxies, and then the supernova and the pillars of creation, and it's amazing. Even we are looking at the dark matter, which is around constitute around 94% of this visible universe, yet we don't know the nature of it. See how much it is powerful. So I will continue. Yeah, coming and getting excited to wrap up. So I'm gonna just be brief about that. And so science, as we said, mechanism. What mechanism caused this? Can it be tested? Can it be falsified? Faith. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why does the universe follow intelligible laws? I've talked to you about the 600 universal constant. It's amazing. And that's why Sir uh, 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 Roger Penrose, Nobel Prize in physics and mathematics, he passed away recently. Alayhi rahmah. He said that, and this is amazing. After contemplating about the entropy and how, since the first moments of the universe, how it gets to that we have stars and it comes from that cosmic dust to really the laws of physics started to be in place and to be constructed, and that it was like somebody was weaving all that fabric, the time-space fabric and all that. How it came into the play with thinking about the purely laws of physics and probabilities and calculation, it was unconceivable at all. It was inconceivable. So he said, it looks like there is another word beyond the word of matter, and he called it the word of ideas. There were some masterminds that was arranging all that to come to this point. He called it the word of ideas because originally he does not come from any religious school of thought. He was not a religious person. Now, as we said, the conflict comes when one domain will step or comes into play in the territory of the other domain, whether it is for science or philosophy, and religion, and ontology. So that compatibility is possible. The science explains how, the faith explores why, both require humility, and that's the key word, being humble about knowledge in general. That's the key word. That's the key. And I remember one quote from Imam Ali, which is my friend who is a present, my friend Walid in the room, always say that, repeats it. نصف العلم كلمة لا أعلم. Half of knowledge is the word I don't know. And I love that. Amazing word. So in that education, I will skip that, leaving some time for my colleagues to enjoy listening to them. And what I would say that really evolution is a creation in motion. To conclude with this, how I look at this subject, randomness is not chaos, but freedom built into the fabric of life. And so that the emergence of consciousness marks creation becoming aware of itself. That's the most beautiful thing, that we are conscious of the universe. That's the most beautiful. Imagine that we are creatures that we are not. We don't have consciousness. Imagine. So then I will quote أتحسب أنك جرم صغير وفيك انطوى العالم الأكبر. The word is embedded in you. because if there is the word and there is no conscience to be aware of this word and of its beauty, it's worthless. Imagine that. That's why the Stephen Hawking says, and maybe you quoted it one time for me about in his book, The Grand Design.
Yes.
He said, and he was talking about how beautiful is this work and how is well done. And he said, whoever is responsible for that, I'm so grateful. So let's conclude with this. And perhaps the deepest question is not whether evolution is God's plan, but whether we are willing to approach both science and faith with the humility, curiosity, and openness. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Thank you. I will leave it for you, but please, please
Astronomy and cosmology. The cause of the Big Bang. What initiated the Big Bang, and what, if anything, preceded it? The uniqueness of life in the universe. Are we alone, or does extraterrestrial life exist? And if it does, why has it not been detected? The Fermi paradox. The nature of cosmic inflation. What mechanism drove the rapid expansion of the universe shortly after the Big Bang? Those are part of the profound questions. Al-As'ila al-Amiqa. The true geometry and ultimate fate of the universe. Will the universe expand forever or recollapse or undergo cyclic phases? The origin of supermassive black holes. How did such massive black holes form so early in the cosmic theory? I will have to introduce Dr. Shadi. Are you? Yeah. I think. Yeah, I think we have Dr. Shadi next. It's our pleasure and honor this evening to welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Shadi Saad. He's an internist and nephrologist, board certified in both internal medicine and nephrology, and the founder and the CEO of several advanced medical initiatives. In addition to his scientific and medical career, Dr. Saad is a thinker, researcher, and writer, and interested in exploring profound relationship between modern science, faith, and human consciousness. Dr. Shadi Saad has authored several books and addressing issues of religious unity, cosmic consciousness, and the intersection of reason and religion text. Most notably is Abraham Brahma, the father of religions, the divine breath of Christ, divine consciousness, a journey towards a harmonious world, and the dilemma of the divine savior. His approach is characterized. I will go on and on. I would like to welcome Dr. Shadi Saad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You want the lights on?
First, I just want to thank you for inviting me today to discuss this topic. I know it's a controversial topic. A lot of time, like you always have to take a stand. Either it's with science or against science, and it's always controversial if you believe in it, or like you're not faithful, or you're not a believer in God. Or so what I'm trying to do over here, I'm just trying to start first with defining who's God first, and then once we understand who's God and the view, the scientific view of God, as, and then we can move on to the theory of evolution. Um, you're gonna find that once you define God the real way with the modern scientific theory, the answer for this controversial question, it becomes very, very easy actually. It's not complicated, and you don't actually have to be outside of faith, outside of religion, or not a believer actually to believe such thing exists. Uh, it's a little bit new view to God, to religion, so I just want to take your time to understand what I'm trying to explain over here. Um, so, so ultimately, like during the religion, there's two different views for God. There's one, what we call the traditional mechanical view of God or Allah. So the traditional view, it's always you imagine God as a mechanical creator. So what it means, a mechanical creator is like a craftsman who built a chair, or who imagined God as a separate entity who created the universe as a clock, and then he stepped away 13.5 billion years ago, and then this whole universe is working like a clock with all this science, physics, and everything that's into it. But this traditional mechanical view of God, it poses some serious problems. First, it makes God as a distant entity. So, like as an entity, every time you ask any of you right now, where's God? So always we imagine like he's a distant entity. He's like a different galaxy. He's very far. It's not close to us. And also, it limits God to a specific time during this 13.5 billion years that created the universe. So it will limit him in time, and it will limit him in space. And then the other thing is like this mechanical view of God, it portrays the creation as something independent that runs in its own. And it also reduces the divine action to kind of like God. And, occasionally he intervene in this world, and a lot of time we say why he's not even intervening with all this wars and everything else, all this mess that's going on around the world, why he's not intervening. So this mechanical model, this is what's creating all this debate between science and between religion, and this is what's creating this, if you want to call it, separation between science and religion. So there was an alternative view of God, God as a fabric of existence. So this view, I'm not the first one who came up with it. A lot of Sufis, uh, what we call in Islam like Arifin, they came up with this view. They look at God as a not separated from existence. They look at God as the existent himself. And they call it then a lot of time as unity of existence. So this view, what we call like أينما تولوا فثم وجه الله. So this view that sees God in everything, sees God as an ocean of existence, an ocean of being, and everything arises from Him and goes back to Him. No. But I'm gonna explain it now. I'm gonna explain what's the view in Islam and other religions, and then I'm gonna see if the modern science that we have right now it proves this theory more or proves the mechanical theory more. Okay, so uh, so whenever God says like Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, so we start from this ocean of existence and we go back to this ocean of existence. So a lot of time we think of this word as whenever somebody dies, goes back to God, or ruh, or his soul goes back to God. But the modern science right now is trying to explain it more, and it supports that view that everything starts from this ocean of existence and everything goes back to this ocean of existence. So instead of saying from dust to dust, you're saying like from like atoms to atoms, or from these atoms to that quantum field, unified field of existence. So this is a point of view that God as an ocean of existence. It's not only pertaining to one religion. And if you really deeply think about it, it unifies all religions together. Like Jesus, a lot of time talks about it as a kingdom of heaven. Buddhism, they describe that source of creation as emptiness, and Hinduism, they describe it as Brahman. Sufism, they call it as fana, or going back to God, or dissolution into God. And Judaism, they call it Ein Sof. And then with the modern physics, they start talking about unified field of existence. So what we're gonna try to explain right now, how does that modern science, it goes along with this view of God, like God is the ocean of existence. It's not just a mechanical entity who created the universe and he stepped away like some like far galaxy. So it's as simple as that. Once you understand this point of view, you will be able to answer the theory of evolution very easily. And you're gonna find that doesn't go against anything that you believe on. So with the modern science, this is for the last 100, 200 years. You can see the nature, us, the tree, everything in nature, the universe, goes back to those molecules. And this molecules goes back to the atoms. And the atoms goes down to something what we call the string theory. So the string theory also goes down to this unified field of existence I call that quantum field. So as you see, like even though you have like trees, humans, everything that looks different on the surface, but if you keep going down, you will get to a point where everything is the same. Everything is this quantum field of existence. So this is the same theory that everybody was talking about. That Jesus was talking about as kingdom of heaven. The Buddhism, they call it emptiness. That Hinduism also they call it Brahman. With Islam, with Sufism, I call it Fana. So this is a quantum field of existence. So most of those, and now you can ask the question, how did they came up with this conclusion like 1,000 years ago? So this is more like experiential kind of things. This is when you can start talking about the true self, the ruh, and how did this individuals, which we call them prophets, or we call them enlightened being, how did they came up with that? How did they reach that conclusion that everything comes back to the same field of existence or the quantum field of existence? So now once we define God as the quantum field of existence, so God is not a separate entity. So everything that you see, the human, the trees, everything comes from this ocean, from these atoms, and goes back to this field of existence. You as a human or anything cannot, you cannot exist without God. So God is not something separate from you. So you need these atoms, you need this unified field of existence to be present. So now God is not like separate entity, it's your existence. That's why whenever they say like in Quran, Allah knows samawati wal ard, مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح, المصباح في زجاجة. This is what they mean. There's one light, but this light, it gives you like so many lights. It gives you like the green, all these colors of rainbow, but everything goes back to this one light. So this one light is, if you wanna explain it to the new generation, or Generation Z that you call, you can call them like this is a quantum field of existence. So in a sense, whenever you're talking about the universe, you're talking about the universe as a conscious, super intelligent universe. A lot of time, whenever we look at the universe, we look at it as an entity, doesn't have conscious, doesn't have intelligence, and this universe is separate from God. But if you go with this kind of theory, you can slowly start to understand that God and the universe are not like separate in a sense. I'm not saying like God is the universe. That's because of the short of the time. We can explain why the emergent idea of time, why there's time to begin with, and how come if the universe is what I call God, why the universe keeps changing. So that's a different discussion. We can do it later. But for now, just if you think about it a little bit, about like how everything goes down to atoms, everything goes to the string theory and the quantum theory. So overall, whenever we're talking about the divine, and we're talking about us as a light. So just in Quran they say Allah نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح. Um, so now the best synonyms that you can explain to the generation that live in this age is the projector. So if you look at the projector right now, you have one light, but in the screen you see different colors. You see actions, you see trees, you see everything. So everything is a projection of God, in a sense. So whenever, like 1,000 years ago, the prophet, he couldn't explain to them like a projector did not have this synonyms as projector. So that's why he said al-misbah. So for now, if you want to kind of get this idea a little bit closer, you can think of as a projector. You have one light that giving you all the colors and everything. And this is with the modern science. So we go back to the theory of evolution. So how are we going to connect all this discussion that we had so far to the theory of evolution? So, and what's the difference between the theory of evolution that Darwin supposed with theory of evolution that I'm supposing right now, I'm kind of proposing right now? So as we mentioned that all the universe has this quantum field or unified field of existence, in a sense, there's a conscious and intelligent universe. So with this understanding, evolution becomes much easier to understand. So once you understand the true nature of God, then evolution becomes much easier to understand. And whenever you talk about evolution, there's a couple of things that misunderstood in all the religions. So whenever God said be and it is, kun fayakun. So first is the timing. Like how does God create? So if God wants to create like humans, does he create them as a magic? Like suddenly out of nowhere, you will have a human? Or since we discussed that everything in this nature is the quantum field and the science, the cosmic law, the gravity, all the science is actually a direct reflection of God. So if God wants to create a human, he will start with this organism, and then this organism will have this intelligent design and for evolution to become like a human. So, and whenever he said like he created the universe in 6 days, he doesn't literally mean to create the universe in 6 days. It could be like billion of years, could be billion of years, right? Because that unified field of existence is outside time. There's no time for, they're kind of like a stable, yeah, timeless. So since like God creates, it doesn't just create from above. So God is the actual woven in the fabric of existence, and and this organism, they have this innate intelligence in them that will help them kind of like a progress from unicellular organism to multicellular organism in the future. So Darwin, the way that Darwin proposed evolution, so we all can see that evolution is real and scientific, and they keep finding evidence of that. So you cannot deny it based on faith, based on because one religion said that Adam was created 6,000 years ago, and then you say that the science is wrong. So when you understand that science is God, and God is science, and God, when He created everything, He created through the cosmic law, created the chemicals, equation, through the math, through everything. So one thing that you cannot deny that. But what is Darwin proposing? He describing a kind of evolution that's based on random variation, based on natural selection, and survival of the fittest. So this is kind of evolution by random, basically. So whoever survival of the fittest will survive, he can progress, he becomes like a human and stuff like that. So what I'm suggesting, based on the theory, based on the explanation that I discussed, that this evolution is not blind by randomness, is not external evolution, and it's guided from within by the divine intelligence. So God or the divine intelligence or the super intelligence is not an entity outside guiding this organism to manifest or guiding this organism to have an evolution. It's actually the universe itself, this quantum field of existence who's creating all these atoms, is the, if you want to call it a supercomputer, but it's the one who is driving this evolution, and he's the one who is increasing the chances for this organism to adapt and adjust with the environment and continue its evolution. So what we're proposing here, we're proposing that God moving into life itself, and adaptation is as inner guidance, and evolution is a divine creativity unfolding. So this is the difference between the Darwin theory of evolution with this, like what I call it, the manifestation theory, like with the evolution. So this evolution is based on internal intelligence. So the organism itself, the universe itself, has innate super intelligence woven into them, and God is actually the ocean of existence. Um, so everything arises from Him, like the ocean, and everything goes back to Him. And this is an evolution by design. So that doesn't mean that survival of the fittest or by random. Actually, this is the divine Himself or God Himself that's guiding or that's doing this evolution from within those organisms.
Is the reality of existence.
Yes. So, as a final integration, God is not a separate from the universe in a sense. Again, I know that may propose a different view from the mechanical view that everybody used to. And creation is not like at a point in time, like God created the universe 13 billion years ago, and now He's separated from it. And actually, there was an ayah in Quran said, like, in Allah yumsik samawati wal ard an tazula. And in that sense, that creation is happening in a blank time, actually. So time by itself is not fundamental to the universe. So time by itself, it comes in from the observer because we are observing the universe. That's why we have this sense of time. But the universe itself is constant, and this constant universe it keep updating itself and keep refreshing itself in a blank time. So blank time is the time like
granular time,
Yeah.
the least division in time.
Yeah, so it's like 1 with 43 zeros of a second. So the whole universe is coming in and out of existence, but that's a speed of time. So creation actually is not like something that came 13 billion years ago. So God is creating everything as we speak. So whenever you look at the flower, whenever you look at everything else, this is God still creating it as we speak. So it's an instant creation. So this is what you call kun fayakun in that sense. So He's always creating, but then there's another question arises like if the universe is constant, why we keep having everything that's changing? But that's kind of a longer discussion. What we want to just finalize and summarize this whole thing, we do believe in evolution, but this evolution is by design. That's guided by the super intelligence that's woven into the fabric of the universe, if you want to call it that. So that's it.
So for you, evolution is God's plan.
So actually, is God doing the evolution Himself? So it's not like He had a plan for evolution. So He is the plan. He's the one who's actually guiding this organism to get to one. So.
One of the profound questions is the medical science and biology, the nature of consciousness. How does the subjective experience arise from the physical process of the brain, aging, therapies, therapeutic limits of genetic engineering, and now allow me to talk about our friend Dr. Brahim. He's a certified senior medical physicist and radiation protection specialist with 25 years of clinical and international experience in radiotherapy, dosimetry, treatment planning, quality assurance, and radiation safety across the USA and the Middle East, Africa. He holds a PhD in physics and a master's degree in medical physics and is certified of the IAEA Radiation Protection and the International Medical Physics Certification Board, which is the IMPCB. He's also active member of the American Association of Physicists in Medicine. And Mr. Duhaini is a fellow of International Union of Physical and Engineering Sciences in Medicine and fellow of the International Organization of Medical Physics. Throughout his career, he has received many internationally prestigious awards. I have to mention this, Dr. Duhaini, for excellence in medical physics, patient safety, and professional advancement, including the Lebanese University Pioneer Award, IOMP Presidential and IDMP Awards, among others. He is currently serving as a senior medical physicist in the Radiation Oncology Department of Karmanos Cancer Institute or at McLaren Flint Hospital, Michigan, in Michigan, while also working as a physics instructor at Lawrence Technological University, USA. His work continues to advance clinical quality standards, radiation safety, and global education in medical physics, supporting patient care. Please welcome Dr. Duhaini.
Thank you very much, Aid, for this
That's the
genuine.
least I can
Yes,
do.
thank you very much. Thank you for your attending this seminar, and also thank you, Dr. Firas, for inviting me to this session. And he asked me, you want to talk about evolution and faith. I've also had a degree in biology from AUB, so I said that's a good idea to go back to my bachelor's degree. So I decided to talk about the theistic evolution perspective, which my colleague Dr. Ahmedi and Dr. Firas mentioned about it. So I will put it under the microscope to make a shed light on it. I will define what is it, then talk about the four aspects of this theistic evolution perspective. I will provide some proof in the Quran from science views, and I will leave it to you if you want to be convinced about this perspective or not, and then we can have open discussion after that. So, first of all, شو هي theistic evolution? Theistic evolution, by definition, and from the Wikipedia, it says that it is a God-guided evolution, as we mentioned before. It is an evolutionary creationism. So it is like a creation and evolution that is from God. Second, God creates through natural laws, including evolution. So there is no contradiction between the natural selection and divine aspects. Third, faith in God as a creator plus acceptance of scientific evidence, they might go together. And this is what we want to prove in the coming slides. Second, what are the core beliefs of theistic evolution? عندنا four core beliefs. أول وحدة, God is the primary cause of everything. Dr. Shadi, he mentioned about a super, being. نحن حنسميها God. Yeah, هيدي God that we have, I think most of us, that there is a super being that controls everything. And this is what we want to say, that he is the primary cause of everything. The second, evolution and natural process. وكل process that comes after that is a secondary, which is controlled by one entity, اللي هي God. Third aspect, scientific consensus that the age of the earth, the Big Bang theory, the natural selections, all these theories and the constant that Dr. Hamedi talked about, 600 constants that if one of them is not correct, that it will mess up the world. So these constants are beliefs and are true things that created also by God. Man can random. Second, humans uniquely created by God, including the soul. So the human, there is a good aspect اللي هو intellectual وهو in the soul. So now how can we prove these evolution perspectives اللي هي أول شيء harmonizes science and faith. This theistic evolution perspective make sure that both of them they go together. Evolution is a tool used by God for its diversity. Third, human uniqueness, soul and spiritual meaning granted by God. And science explains how, where faith explains why. This is also mentioned by the previous speakers. So هدول four entities or four perspectives of the theistic evolution will try to, try to convince you of it with proof from the scientific proof and from the Quran. First of all, as we mentioned that the Earth is 4.5 billion years ago, and there is a randomic datings using the radioactive elements. That's why how we can age, the fossils. And the universe began 15.8 billion years ago. So this is also some scientific facts proves that. According to different theories, and evolution is supported by the fossils, by the genetics, and also by natural selections. And these are scientific facts, as mentioned by Dr. Shadi, that nobody can ignore or deny them. So these are the scientific proof of that harmonizing the science and faith. The Quranic proof, it says that the Quran confirms creation through stages compatible with gradual biological development. إذا فينا نشوف بسورة نوح الآية 14 وقد خلقناكم أطوارا. He created you in stages. So هذا دليل إنه في تطور بالخلق. كمان بسورة المؤمنين آية رقم 14 ثم بيحكي عن كيفية خلق الإنسان بالرحم. خلقناكم من نطفة ثم خلقنا النطفة علقة فخلقنا العلقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. This is also a proof that the process of creation of men comes into gradual with different stages. The Quran invites observation of creation, no rejection of natural explanation. وهيدي كمان موجودة بسورة العنكبوت الآية رقم 20 بيقول بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل سيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف بدأ الخلق ثم الله ينشئ النشأة الآخرة إن الله على كل شيء قدير. So this is a proof that God wants us to observe, wants us to look into the creation so that we can grasp more. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So this is a push for us from the Quran to harmonize again faith and science. The second perspective of theistic is evolution is a tool used by God for life diversity. The scientific proof اللي هي speciation اللي هي تعدد species. في نحن عندنا مثلا أعطيكم example how many species of cats or dogs. So هذا التعدد species is part of what is Darwin's proof. Comparative anatomy في عندنا homology.
Finches of Galapagos.
Yes.
That's a different
Yeah.
start.
Now, comparative anatomy homology يعني مثل ما قلنا إنه they start from a certain base cells atoms. So هيدي it's also it is independent of the origin. Genomic evidence reveals a consistent evolutionary tree where mutations accumulate gradually under environmental pressure. Sometimes the environment they affect the genetics, they will be having different kind of species. This is from the scientific proof from the Quranic proof, it says the Quran attributes every mechanism in nature to Allah's creation. Again, Dr. Shadi mentioned this, Allah command, including systems related discovered scientifically. بسورة ياسين بيقول بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. And also بسورة المؤمنين الآية 14 بيقول فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. So this is a proof from the Quran that the God can create anything, anywhere, as He wants. The second, the Quran explicitly states all creations were created from a common origin. كمان موجودة اللي هي الماء بسورة الأنبياء وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي. وكمان بسورة النور والله خلق كل دابة من ماء. So again, this is ma constitute of molecules, atoms. So there is a proof from the Quran that is one origin for all the creations. The third entity, human uniqueness, soul and spiritual meaning granted by God. Scientific proof, we know that humans share a biological ancestry with other primates, but they are distinguished from different primates on these categories. أول شيء advanced prefrontal cortex اللي حكي عنه دكتور حميدي اللي هو العقل, the planning and the ethics and reasoning. Symbolic language, we have the culture, we are able to do abstract thoughts. Moral agency كمان حكي عنها اللي هي capacity to form civilization, laws and moral systems. And self-awareness demonstrated in neurology, cognitions, and psychology. So these aspects, they will make us a unique entity than other primates or other creations. بالنسبة للقرآن أكيد بدها تكون واضحة. The Quran confirms that Adam's body was formed, then the soul was added by Allah, marking a distinct non-biological component of human added. بسورة السجدة يقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم سواه ونفخ فيه من روحه. يعني خلق آدم ونفخ فيه من روحه, يعني he put the previous concepts into the humans other than the creations. كمان بسورة الهجر يقول فإذا سويته ونفخت فيه من روحي فقعوا له ساجدين. So that's تعظيما لبني آدم إنه هو عنده different aspects than the other creations. The Quran grants humans a unique status beyond biology, other than the biological entity of other primates. بسورة إسراء ولقد كرمنا بني آدم, وبسورة البقرة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. So these aspects prove that God gives some spirituality to humans other than the primates, that did not give it to any other species. So for the fourth aspect, science explains how and faith explains why. How we know that the scientific proof is that the evolution explains how, the genetic variation, mutation, or recombination, these are scientific facts that we can be shown or be proved scientifically. Environmental pressure, ممكن they do control the natural selection, and the gradual adaptations, anatomical and genomic changes over generations. We can see those, in front of us through generations. Biodiversity, branching speciations, and inherited traits. These are also can be explained in a how manner. This is the mechanistic explanation, not a claim about the purpose or ultimate causations. Whereas in the Quran, it says we can prove it why or explain it why. Creation has intentional purpose, not randomness. ما في عندنا randomness. بسورة صاد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما خلقنا السماء والأرض وما بينهما باطلا. There is a cause for creating السماء والأرض وما بينهما. And بسورة المؤمنين أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. كمان مثل ما قال دكتور شادي, it's a cycle, it's an ocean. إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون. So Allah governs the existence and the meaning. Humans are created for recognition of God, moral responsibility, and spiritual return. So these proof from the scientific proof and the Quranic, they coincide together that faith and science, they come together. I would like to show from a source about the explaining of the human evolution. هلا هيدي الصورة هي اللي بتعمل كثير من الملاحظات. أول شيء, the image wrongly suggests humans evolved in a straight line from monkeys to modern human. This image has some difficulty to understand or to grasp. First, it reinforces that the false belief that humans descended are from existing primates instead of evolving alongside from them. نحن, we are parallel to them. So the truth is that humans and other primates share a common ancestor. مثل ما قلنا إنه عندنا المي مثلا بالقرآن أو عندنا الatoms, they are formed from same entity, but they have evolved directly from each other. The graphic is historically based on Rudolf Franz Zellinger, who اللي حاطه عمل هيدا الجراف. So because it is a misleading message, the image has caused more misunderstanding than clarity in expanding evolution. The best, schematic of the evolution is this image, اللي هو بيفرجي عنا هون different primates. They have evolution is best presented by the phylogenetic tree, not a linear sequence. Phylogenetic tree, يعني they started from one entity and they make like a tree resemblance. So species on branches are relatives but not direct ancestors. So ancestors are shown in the nodes. So إذا بنلاحظ هون يعني كلياتهم هول species, they come from the one source. بس هيدا عطى البرايميتس وهون عطى مثلا الشمبانزي, وهيدا second node gives rise to different entity species اللي هن بني آدم. So node number 1 is the common ancestor for all 6 primates, including human, whereas node number 2 common ancestors of chimps, modern humans, and extinct human species. So with this, I will conclude that theistic evolution bridges faith and science. God works through natural process. Spiritual meaning plus scientific inquiry can coexist together, as proven by the science and faith. And in summary, I would say that theistic evolution presents a harmonious model where faith and science complement and they do not contradict each other. God, Allah, is the primary cause. The evolution is one of the natural laws He uses to unfold life diversity. Evolution explains how life changes and branches over time through genetics and environmental adaptation. The Quran supports a gradual staged unfolding of creation, encouraging reflection and scientific observation. Humans did not evolve from existing monkeys or chimps. We share a common ancestors with them, but we're not the same ancestors. And
Beautiful summary.
Summary, linear progression graphics are misleading. So the phylogenetic trees is better to show how true relations between different ancestors. Human uniqueness is spiritual, not just biological, and unlike other primates. God grants the soul, moral agency, and purpose to the humans. Science answers the question how, but while faith answers why, and both are necessary to complete the worldview. Respectful dialogue across perspective enriches the understanding and strength appreciation of the Creator. And as I take note, creation has a system and it has a purpose. Science reveals the system while faith reveals the purpose, and theistic evolution unites them under one Creator, God. And one time Einstein says that العلم بدون دين أعرج والدين بدون علم أعمى. Thank you very much.
Charafeddine, why? We're anxious to hear you. Just want to finish my profound question. Theology and philosophy the nature of free will, the problem of consciousness, the purpose of existence, the existence of God, foundations of morality, life after death, the simulation hypothesis. Wissam Charafeddine is an Arab American thinker, educator, and engineer with a master's degree in software engineering from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. His intellectual journey into the biological sciences was catalyzed in 2008 during his research for an article on Islam and evolution, which led him to adapt a new science-based understanding of life. Very interesting. A prolific writer and dedicated advocate of free inquiry, Wissam is the author of Dialogue, A Universe from Void. حوار كون بلا عدم. Check. من عدم. And the Universal Declaration of Human Values. He has a deep background in Islamic studies and Arabic history, which he bridges with modern scientific thought through his work as a co-founder of the Al-Nadwa Freethinking Society, Arab humanist, Livonia-minded environment of the exchange ideas. And one more line for you. Wissam, other than the entrepreneurship and daytime work, also sits on boards of several organizations as well as serving as the chairman of the Pan-Islamic Alliance. Go ahead, Mr. Charafeddine.
Thank you, and I know we have taken longer than anticipated. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Firas and Dr. Aqil for organizing this event, much needed space and dialogue in our community. And to you all, dear respected brothers and sisters, especially our professors in the room, Dr. Wajih, also our teacher, and Haji Nawar Ahmadi, who I consider her a mentor and a role model. And she had a great influence on me, shaping me as an educator. So it's a pleasure to be among all of you. Thank you, Doctor, for explaining that evolution is not a series, and rather it is a tree that resolves the issue of the new discoveries. They are never in contradiction to evolution. They always enhance the understanding of this tree. Dr. Shadi, I've always been interested in understanding your thoughts. I see your TikToks, but they're short. And now it was an opportunity to take an idea at that. Dr. Firas, thank you for your presentation. I want to start where Haji actually started or ended, where science describes processes and faith addresses purpose and meaning. I think this statement all of us have emphasized today and we agreed on. And trust that faith is not fragile. That's a statement that Haji made that is very, very important. That we should stop treating our faith as if it is fragile. And this seminar is a proof of that we are confident enough to discuss subjects that might be considered in some places or in some times controversial. So I want to also thank you for starting with the recognition what long has been recognized by the scientific community, something we have in common in this room, that all of us believes that the evolution is a scientific fact, that we all believe in the theory of evolution, and that's a relief. I know there is differences in understanding evolution, but we all recognize it as a scientific fact, similar to the 98% of the biomedical scientists of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and according to Pew Research, also similar to 99% of PhD scientists, and similar to 99% of active research scientists. The problem that we have is not in this room. The problem that we have that in American society, and it has improved drastically from 57% in the 50s to about 63% today. 2 out of 3 now recognize the theory of evolution, but 1 out of 3, contrary to the scientific consensus, they still do not believe in the theory of evolution. This is where education plays a role and the importance of education. And I really appreciate the organizers of having Ms. Hamadi, Dr. Hamadi, starting this as an educator, because it really boils down to the public perception of science, the education about science. If we were invited here, to discuss the theory of evolution, it would have been a different matter, but I'm glad that we are not. Third, whether evolution is part of God's plan or not, that I want to give this disclaimer, that has no effect on God. Actually, religious people keep getting their religion mixed up sometimes, trying to insert God forcefully into some aspects that it's not necessarily there's a need to mix it with science. So I will be discussing a little bit a different point of view within. I mean, we agree on 99% of what was presented today, but I appreciate the diversity in the panel that Dr. Firas and Dr. Aqil have created by inviting also this point of view. The point of view is God is not just powerful. God is Al-Hakim. He's perfectly wise. This is the concept of God as presented in most of our Abrahamic religions, or all of our Abrahamic religions, and most of religions in the world. He is all-knowing. He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, boundlessly merciful. He is Al-Adl, perfectly just. These are claims about the nature of the reality of God. So tonight, I want to ask a simple question. Does the process we call evolution look like the work of a merciful, wise, all-knowing planner, or does it look like something else entirely? And to answer this, we must first understand what evolution is, and I understand that in this room, all of us, we understand the theory of evolution, but there is something that makes it really closer to us, which is the idea that evolution is not a guided journey toward perfection. It's not a plan with a goal in mind. Evolution works through random genetic mutations, followed by brutal filtering. Mistakes happen randomly. Most of those mistakes fail. Failure usually means pain, disability, or death. Whatever survives long enough to reproduce continues. That is the engine, not wisdom, not foresight, not mercy, survival at any cost. Evolution is blind and cruel. There is no emotions in evolution. Even extreme pain, if it doesn't kill enough to eradicate enough of the species from the gene pool, then it is okay with evolution. Simple example, our birth, a baby coming out of a womb of a mother, is an incredibly painful process. It actually defines pain. When a doctor asks you a question, how much pain do you feel? From 1 to 10, 10 is giving birth pain. And why? Because such a large head has to exit from such a small place. This historically has caused, usually 50% of the time, has caused bleeding, death of the mother, or death of the child. But, Hassan, لو سمحت مي. My mouth is dry.
It's painful.
I'm sorry, I'm a little sick. You know, the longevity of women historically has been an average of 18 years old because of the extreme percentage of death of women during birth. So when humans want a certain trait, we practice evolution in breeding. When we want a bigger tomato, we want a sweeter date, we want a faster horse, we want more milk from a cow. We do not rely on randomness. We select intentionally. We choose which plants to cross-pollinate. We choose which animals are allowed to reproduce. We remove undesirable traits deliberately and preserve desirable ones knowingly. This process is called selective breeding. It works. Most of our vegetables and fruits today, they have bred over centuries. They look nothing like their wild ancestors. It works because there's intelligence, intention, and foresight behind it. This is how intelligence behind evolution look like, because we practice it. Even then, it is slow, limited, and often produces suffering. Many animals bred by humans develop health problems, deformities, or shorten lives because we push traits without fully understanding the consequences. Cows, sometimes their bones break because we've bred them to be so fat. Evolution is similar in one narrow sense. Traits that help survival and reproduction tend to persist, and traits that do not tend to disappear. But here's the crucial difference. In human breeding, there is a selector who knows what they want, a goal in mind, moral limits, however imperfect, the ability to stop when harm becomes obvious. In evolution, there is no selector with awareness. Nature does not know what it's doing. It's blind. There is no goal, no foresight, no concern for well-being. Mutations occur blindly. Most are harmful or useless. 99% of species got انقرضوا. Those that kill before reproduction are eliminated, not because they are bad, but because they failed. To put it bluntly, evolution is like selective breeding without a breeder. Imagine a farmer who releases thousands of animals into the wild, introduces random genetic damage into each generation, watches most of them suffer or die, and then keeps going for millions of years without learning, correcting, or stopping. We would not call that farming. We would call that negligence. So for these reasons, inefficiency on a cosmic scale, evolution is staggeringly inefficient. 99% of all species that ever existed are extinct. Some of the skulls that were discovered, they're of other hominids. We are part of 11 hominid species. We're Homo sapiens. There's other hominids. The one that we're most familiar with is the Neanderthals, who actually we coexisted with for a while. And our DNA contains 1 to 5% Neanderthal DNA. If an engineer destroys 99% of their prototypes, we would not call them brilliant. We would call them reckless, possibly criminal. Entire species lived, struggled, suffered, and vanished, not because they were evil, not because they chose wrongly, but because random mutations failed to keep up with changing conditions. This is not refinement, this is just mass disposal. Would an all-knowing God need billions of years of failed experiments to create us? Would divine wisdom require endless trial and error? Or would such a God already know the outcome and therefore not need the unnecessary suffering? Let us speak plainly about the cruelty of evolution. In evolution, suffering is not a side effect, it is essential. Predators must tear prey apart alive. Parasites must eat hosts from the inside. Millions of offspring must be born only to starve, suffocate, or be eaten. Sea turtles. Hundreds of eggs hatch. Most babies never reach the ocean. Birds tear them apart. Crabs rip them open. Fish swallow them whole. This is not punishment. This is just the system. Evolution produces organisms whose entire survival strategy is maximal harm. For example, parasites that blind children or eat eyes from the inside, organisms that hijack brains and alter behavior, wasps that paralyze prey, lay eggs inside them as larvae can eat them alive. These are not anomalies, these are successful evolutionary strategies. This is considered in evolution language success. If suffering works, evolution keeps it. Evolution is the worst way of creating something. Consider animals born with malformed limbs, unable to walk, slowly dying of hunger. Cancers that arise from random mutations, the same mechanism that supposedly creates progress, also creates these cancers. If this were a human design system, we would shut it down immediately. We would not say this is wise, and we would not say this is merciful, and we would not say that there is a purpose behind it. Trial and error is not divine intelligence. Evolution depends on blind trial and error. Blind means no foresight. Error means failure is expected. In Islam, God is not blind. The God I believe in does not guess, does not experiment. The Quran repeatedly describes creation as measured, intentional, and precise. Trial and error is what we do when we don't know what will work. Why would an all-knowing God need to try millions of versions of eyes before arriving at the one that sees? Why would a wise creator produce creatures with backward retinas, shared breathing and eating tubes that cause choking, or spines that collapse under upright posture, all well-known evolutionary leftovers? These are not signs of wisdom, and that's why I doubt the question of today's seminar is evolution part of God's plan? A moral problem also. That suffering has a purpose. And this is what I mean, is that this is a theological claim that suffering has a purpose. But when we try to bend science into our theology, then this is where the conflict starts. If we keep science where it is, and we keep faith where it is, faith brings us why? Brings us the wisdom, the purpose, and the meaning of our life. While science explains to us the mechanisms, like Dr. has described, it's just a process of what's going on. We might have questions. We might have questions. Is God behind this process? What is the meaning behind this process? But we don't need to always answer the questions that we have. I like how one of our speakers ended with a question. I think Dr. Firas. He ended with a question. I love ending with a question because a question is a path for wisdom, and it is a path for increasing our knowledge, and it is what keeps us connected to God. Is that this area of al-majhul, this area that this unknown, that we always are seeking something higher for our guidance. Evolution does not assign meaning to suffering; it only rewards the survival. I'm going to skip to save you some time. So when we say ليس كمثله شيء, no faithful person would accept a ruler who governs in such a cruel way or allows such a cruelty to happen. Sometimes we can bring wisdom to some levels of cruelty, small levels of cruelty, they carry with them lessons. But to the level of wastefulness and the large scale of cruelty that evolution is characterized with, we cannot attach it to God. Waste, all of you have studied and understand the amount of waste in our DNA, and the brain wiring, and the number of connections, and the millions of eggs that a frog lays, that all, but if they're lucky, 1 out of millions become the next progeny. There is a lot of wastefulness and a lot that's not necessary. A frog is not a large part of our wisdom. And it is to look at evolution, which is 13, Dr. Faras, you said 400 million, but the more accurate figure is 3.5 to 3.8 billion years, where the first cell, prokaryotic cell, has, there's evidence of its existence on Earth. So 3.8 billion years of life for us to exist at the last 250,000, and the only species that have the consciousness of its existence, it is really challenging to describe this method as something that is from God. So that's why I argue that evolution, I cannot relate the process of evolution to God. God brings the order, the love, the mercy, the kindness, the humanity in us, and that is opposite to the harshness that we suffer because of evolution. I'm taking my glasses off and on because of evolution. To end like where we started and where all of us have agreed that faith is necessary to answer our whys. There is no science never tackled the whys. If you ask science, what's the purpose? What's your purpose in life? Nothing. What's the purpose of this existence? They have no answer. But spirituality, religion does. And science has discovered the house, and we've built our life and universe around the house. But it is important to understand science as is, and to understand our faith as is, and not create a conflict where there is no conflict, because that hurts the learning process and the education process. And I love what Ms. Hamadi mentioned as the instructions to teachers, that this is the processes of science and faith answers the why question. That's how we answered the students. I wish that not only students, but the whole society is instructed with the same instructions that we give to the teachers. Thank you.
So keep less headache. Is that what you mean?
I think so.
There is a Q&A, question and answer.
Separate. Who created it? This is my question. Like, if you feel that it's separate, who created it?
Well, the question is open to the panel, so I'll leave.
Yeah, go ahead.
I asked my question.
Oh,
Like this
Who
is,
do you want to answer this?
who do you want the answer from?
I'm asking Mr. Wissam because he's the one who suffered.
تفضل.
Subject to this theory.
You know, I wrote the book حوار كون من عدم to address how do I arrive to God away from the scientific questions. So not every question needs to be answered. Maybe the answer is I don't know. So we know the process. We don't know what's behind. The science doesn't know even what's behind. Us, the religious and the scientists, both of them arrive at a point where both of them say, we don't know. But the religious have their faith in what is behind there, and the scientists have their hope on discovering more processes. And that's what motivates humanity: curiosity by science and hope by religion.
Very well done. I have a question that's connected to what you had said. God is like, He doesn't create imperfections or whatever it is. But there's somewhere in the Holy Quran, because I'm not a religious scholar, so I cannot really track the ayahs that reference that. In a nutshell, the bulk of the meaning of some of the ayahs states that ولا تكرهوا شيئا عسى خير لكم أو ربما أن تكرهوا شيئا
وهو خير لكم وعسى أن تحبوا شيئا وهو شر لكم.
exactly what I was trying to state. So there's something in the Quran that states that there's something that may be not good for you, but there's something that's good for you. So how do you explain that there is going to be, so.
So I think there's two perspectives. One perspective is nature bad or good? So nature is neither good or bad. It's what it is. What Wissam said. Like it's just a process of evolution. We as a human, we try to tend to think of it as evil. Like if a lion eats a gazelle, like for example, this is evil, but this is nature, the way it is. That's completely separate from the evil doing that's being perpetrated in this world. So there's the evil that's being done by the humans, I guess all the humans, and there's the nature, the way it is, which works perfectly fine. The fact is, he's standing over here and he's talking and he's thinking, and his brain is being going through this evolution to be able to put slides together and to be able. So that means the evolution it did get us to a point where we get to that level of consciousness. Now, what's the next level of consciousness for a human? That's the next purpose. What do you think? Do you think the evolution out now stopped? Is it going to continue? What's the next level of evolution? So what I think like right now in the future, the next evolution is the evolution of consciousness. Because in a lot of religious, spiritual faith, they explain God as universal consciousness. And they explain humans as the spot of like individual manifestation of consciousness. And then without this individual level of consciousness, how are you going to look at the nature and say the nature is good or the nature is bad or the sun is good or beautiful or anything? So without this consciousness, you cannot judge the universe. And this whole evolution, the human stands at the top of this tree of evolution because all this difficult part of evolution that got us to a point where a human, we can just stand in front of nature and say that nature is beautiful or good. That's kind of like the purpose. So the universe or God is discovering in a sense himself. So when you come to this earth, you don't know yourself. You start looking, who is God? Where is God? And then you get to a point when you start understanding like God is everything and we are part of this universal consciousness. So the next level of evolution of human is a level of evolution of consciousness. So once my conscious level gets to a point where it gets merged with God, so you don't need to die to go back to God actually. Like when you say Nala wa Nala Rajon, you don't need to die to get back to this universal consciousness. So enlightenment and a lot of time explain the level where your individual consciousness merged with the universal consciousness. So when a lot of this human start getting enlightened, so this is the next level of evolution where you have this super organism like the ants or the bees, where you have this bunch of enlightened being, a bunch of like this super consciousness that's being spread around, where it gets to a point where we create harmony, and you will see more harmony. Even the earth itself start responding better. So again, we're going back to the same thing. So nature by itself is not either good or bad. It's just what it is.
Thank you so much for all the presentations. I have really enjoyed all of them, and you hit the head of the nail. So, or the tip of the nail. So, but Mrs. Hamadi, you asked a question, and I allow myself also to answer it from what I know from Islamic philosophy or from the religious philosophy in general. And also maybe it might answer some of the questions you have raised about the cruelty of nature and suffering and justice of God. So in a nutshell, we treat that philosophy in looking at this word when we say in Islam in general. Allow me to talk about that from Islamic point of view. The hayat al-dunya, the lowest, not basically the nearest. And its nature is the nearest for us, but all is conceptual. We develop the meanings. The meaning of suffering, we ourselves, we say cruelty, or we talk about suffering. But in fact, in the theology or Islamic philosophy, the word of perfection is the akhirah. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. The other word, or let's say the heaven, the kingdom of God, like Jesus mentioned, or let's say when you get to the nirvana or other philosophies, it's the word of perfection. And this is our brain tells us, and the human knowledge and the inductive knowledge of a human get to this knowledge. And basically, we cannot know things in this life except by the lack of means, by the contradictory aspect. So if there were viruses and bacteria, but I mean, in this struggle in nature, we got antibiotics and we evolve. The nature of evolving of this world requires, or as a necessity, to have contradictory states. And we know the good from the bad. It has to have the opposite of good is the bad. If you don't, there are no sufferings, no death. We don't know. We don't value life. We don't value when recovery, or we don't value when we are in a good health. But when a human being said, if you ask God, the Creator, how much you have, constructed me as a complex human being with all those billions of cells and billions of factories in me, and the astonishing brain that has 100 billion cells, neurons, and then you destroy me in a minute, for example. So some human thinking will say, okay, this is absurd if you create that human being toward perfection. But the God's answer is, the word of perfection is not this word. And this is the word of mortality. And because from theistic point of view, not to say from Islamic point of view, he's the owner of all this life, then you cannot ask an owner if he disposes of his things. If okay, I am a rich person, for example, and I bought I bought a car, then next day I disposed of that car. Okay, you're free. This is your ownership. So, in a nutshell, what I wanted to say, this what we see as cruelty and suffering is our point of view when we humanize God. We make them at our image, and what we think of Him as with emotions as like humans. But life is beyond that. The Creator is beyond that, is wiser than that. And He constructed that word of contradiction. He put contradictions and the word of development, and is keeping evolving. This is the nature of life. And part of our testing, because this life of Hayat al-Dunya, the low aspect of existence, is about test as well. And a test to go to the next stage of perfection, which is al-Hayat al-Akhirah.
I want to say something. I would appreciate. Thank you very much. This is really a 3 hour. It's really a 2 hours and 40-minute workshop. I really didn't plan on having that long of a discussion. We have a lot of questions. This is, first of all, thank you very much for the subject. Number one, whether we agree or not, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the importance of having a conversation on this issue. I really don't care, because science is science. At any rate, remember, I want to leave you with this, that the Pope Francis said, God is the concept in the mind of the faithful, period. That's in my mind. Okay, we have no idea. Spinoza worked on this. He tried to define God. Anybody tried to define God. We cannot define God. No one on earth, all of the definition, I'm sorry, are not accurate. They're not defined with the real, science is experimental. Science, there is experiment with yes, no, measurement, terms, definition, units. No way on earth you can have faith associated with any unit. There's no units for faith. No unit you can measure faith whatsoever. And that's what I mean.
Be verified.
It cannot be verified because I can verify the length of the length and width of this piece, this item. I cannot measure the width and length of faith. How would I do that? I'm sorry that that took a long time. I'm Dr. Abbas, by the way, you know me.
We're honored by your presence,
I appreciate that. We wanted to have a great discussion. Thank you very much for this. We need to have more and more in this and this conversation in this community. We need it. We need to really respect, because as a scientist, you may conclude different than I conclude reading the same thing. We may conclude that, hey, I don't believe in God. Would I be accepted in the community? For example, I'm just saying.
You are always accepted in our hearts.
I understand. I do understand that and appreciate it. This is the term. This is really the word that we have to appreciate, that we absolutely need this sort of confirmation for our kids, for our kids. And by the way, my kids never know whether they are Muslim or Christians till they were around, I want to say teenagers, intentionally, because I want them to find out throughout the world, not through me, or their mom, or their aunt, or I really shielded them from that. And I'm sorry, and I have to say, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but it took a long time. Nevertheless, this is really a good conversation. I'm sorry that I have to go myself. I already have another commitment, but thank you for the absolutely very, very important topic to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome, Dr. Few comments. Few of your yeah, we expected we go over the
Excuse me.
We appreciate your presence. Yeah.
بس عندي تعليق صغير ضيق بس.
طبعا ساعة وبعدين بالبداية يعني ساعة وبعدين
شكرا لجميع اللي شاركوا. في نقطة مميزة بس حبيت أضوي عليها، إنه السؤال كثير هو علمي، بس للأسف اللغة اللي يستخدمها غير علمية، بما فيها مداخلة صديقي وسام. يعني كان عم بيحاول ينقض نظرية الخلق على اعتبار إنه التطور عملية مؤلمة.
عرفنا بحضرتك لو سمحت.
عم قول إنه
عرفنا بحضرتك.
اسمي طارق عبد الواحد.
أهلا.
فبعطي لي الفكرة. كنت عم قول إن اللغة اللي استخدمت للإجابة على سؤال علمي كانت غير علمية كفاية لمناقشة هذا الموضوع. بالنسبة لموضوع الصديق وسام، يعني افترض إنه عملية الخلق عبر الانتخاب الطبيعي هي لازم تكون غير مؤلمة، وهذا افتراض غير علمي أصلاً. يعني من قال إنه عملية الانتخاب الطبيعي أو التطور يجب أن تكون غير مؤلمة؟ إذا كان يجب أن تكون غير مؤلمة، فعملية التطور نفسها كان لازم تنتج الخلق الأقل إيلاما، يعني الكائن الأقل تأثرا بالألم. بينما هلأ النظرية المطروحة إنه هو بتخلق الشخص الأفضل أو الكائن الأفضل. بس هيك
It's a good point. It's a good point. حسن.
في فكرة ثانية على السريع للدكتور شادي، مفهوم الإله. أنا بعتقد إنه يسكت the Islamic God. انت رحت على الاله العقل الاول تبع ارسطو
لا سبينوزا عم يحكي.
العقل الصوفي اللي هو الغنوصي، بس ضل العقل الاسلامي اللي هو العقل المفارق اللي هو تايمليس بوزيشنلess. فانت طبعا العلم يقول انه العالم سوف ينتهي، فاذا كان الله يحل في هذا العالم والعالم سوف ينتهي, that means God will come one day to die.
Actually, I have an explanation for that. I don't know if you have time to listen to it.
Yeah, let's do another session.
I can explain that.
Okay.
We appreciate your presence. شكرا لحضوركم.
Can I pass these?
We will have another session. We will notify you. We will let you know about the question and answer in the next event. Thank you.